Let's do a full calibration on an Apple Pro display. This is a brand new guide, very different than the previous guide that I have released. The method is really brand new and I highly recommend you watching this. I'll also share with you the display from Apple that are compatible with this and also the color calibration devices that you can use. If you're a Creative Pro and you want to get the best color possible for your Mac, this is everything you need to know about full calibration. I'm ArtIsRight. So this is the finale of my 3-part series. The link to the other 2 parts will be in the description. I highly recommend that you watch them before you continue on with this one. So if you just got any of these Apple Pro displays, or if you have one already, following through these guide in part 1, part 2, and then part 3 in sequential order is going to be the best thing that you can do to get the best color from your Mac Pro displays. Now, interestingly enough, part 1, I've gone in and talked about reference and preset mode, the what, the why, how to use them, and also how to create your own custom preset that's going to be best suited for your creative workflow and your environment. If you have any of these Pro displays, that is a great first step to get started with a really great display so that you can actually work in good color accuracy. Now, once you have created a custom preset, the next thing that you want to do is in part 2, and that is to do a fine-tune calibration. Now, in my testing, what I have found out is that without fine-tuned calibration, we're getting decent values of delta E, between 2 and 4. Now, that's not necessarily the best value, but it's something that's considered okay. In general, if you're unfamiliar with delta E, that is the number that describes how good and how accurate your display is when compared to your reference value. The lower that value, the lower that number it is, better, the more accurate your display is. And in general, for a pro creative display, you want that number to be below 2. Once we have done the fine-tune calibration, I was able to verify that I can get that number easily below 2, usually between 1.3 and about 1.5 and 1.7, depending on the color mode that you choose. So this is something that you definitely want to follow through, and you can use plenty of devices from Calibrite to go through that part. Now comes through the full calibration. I have released calibration guides before on these Apple Pro displays, but that was quite a while ago, and Apple have done something different. In macOS Tahoe 26 and also with the new release of the Studio Display XDR, along with other displays, Apple have gone in and updated the firmware and added a device to a compatibility list, and that is the Calibrite Display Plus HL device. This is a device that costs $339. Very easy to use, very forgiving compared to the other devices they have, and you don't need a lot of know-how. In fact, what I'm about to show you is going to be much easier than if you would have done the calibration the way how I've showed you before. Now, interestingly enough, a few caveats I do want to note is that once you've done the full calibration, it's going to remove all the fine-tuned calibrations that you've done before. So my personal guide as far as using Apple Pro displays are as follows. If you just got something new, create a custom reference preset, fine-tune the calibration there, and leave it for a little bit. Now, down the road, if your display starts to drift a little bit, I would say anywhere between 3, 6, 9, or like 9 months or maybe a year or so, I would come in and do the full calibration again if you have the compatible device. This way it would adjust everything. Now there's a little caveat to that too that's very interesting. I'll share that with you in a few slides. But first, let's talk about the displays that are compatible. And by the way, in this guide, we're only going to use the utility and software that is built into macOS. We're not going to use Calibrite Profiler software to do any of these steps. That's why in some senses, it's going to be easier, but there is definitely a time commitment. I'll share that with you in just a moment too. So the compatible displays are Studio Display version 1 and 2, that's a 27-inch 5K, the Studio Display XDR 27-inch 5K mini LED, which I'll be doing this demo on, the Pro Display XDR 32-inch 6K, and all of the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro going all the way back to the M1 Pro, M1 Max silicon. Now, interestingly enough, it doesn't really matter what silicon you have, as long as you have a MacBook Pro, either a 14 or 16-inch, this is going to work. And if you really want to know if your laptop's compatible or not without having to do much research, you can simply go into click on Apple on the top left and click on About. It will tell you which laptop you have. Or the other thing is just look down the keyboard. If the spaces between your keys are black like this, you have the Pro model and it will work. If it's not, well, if it's just a color of the chassis itself, then it's probably not going to work with these methods. So the device I will be using to do this full calibration is the Calibrite Display Plus HL, and this is really awesome, like I said, I mean, for so many different reasons. Now, when you do a full calibration, it's going to do the following. The calibration measures and adjusts the primaries, that is the X and Y coordinate on the white balance or on the white point of the display, the luminance, and also the gamma response of your display. It will also replace any previous calibration and fine tuning. This is the part where I was saying, like, you know, the best thing to do is to create a preset, do a fine tune, and just leave it. And afterwards, like, a while down the road, you can come in and do the full calibration, to which once you do the full calibration, you have to go back and do the fine tune again. So that's just something to think about there. Calibration improves all the preset, but is most important to optimize for your current preset. That is the one that you're going to use the most. If you have created a custom one following my guide, that's most likely going to be your primary preset. So you want to choose that first before you go and do the full calibration. It says you need to be in a dark environment and have a measurement device that is connected to this particular Mac. So the Mac that you have, doing the calibration. Now, this is a guide from Apple. They recommend if you're using an external display from Apple that use their Thunderbolt cable that comes with it. If you're calibrating a MacBook Pro display, you want to connect it to power before, because it's going to run the display at full brightness for about 30 minutes before it goes through the calibration process. That's the warming up part of it, and it's going to do that for all the displays regardless of how long the display has been on. It's going to do that thermal stabilization first. And then what you want to do is connect a supported spectroradiometer or a colorimeter to your Mac. And then the instrument can be following this way with a Pro Display Calibrator using the OS built-in one. So these are the devices that are compatible. Now, interestingly enough, I tried to look up the price on a photo research device. These are industrial type device, and I could not really find a price, and you have to get the quote and everything, so I'm not going to really worry about that. But there's also that parentheses, recommended bandwidth, 4 or 5 nanometers, but the aperture as follows. I mean, you need a lot of know-how to use this device. It's not as simple as just plugging in and being able to use right away. You need to set all these settings up. And then there's another class of device, the colorimetry research, the CR300, which is like close to $16,000. The cheapest one on that list is the CR100 at $5,500. This is the reason why in my previous video I was saying that it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do a full calibration, because most of the time we can't afford to really buy this. I can't afford one. Maybe you could, I don't know, but you can certainly rent these. But nonetheless, the colorimetry research does require you to be in a dark room, because the device itself does not lay flat on the screen. Yes, there is a part that you can use so that it just covers the screen entirely, the part that's actually measuring the light, but nonetheless, it requires a know-how still. For example, CR100, there's a little asterisk there on the other side saying, for CR100, create a matrix profile for your Apple display using the software provided by the manufacturer colorimeter. I mean, it's so complicated. And interestingly enough, Apple has just gone in and added this Calibrite Display Plus HL device. This one costs $339. I think it's going to be great for a majority of us out there that just want to get good, accurate colors without investing too much time, too much effort, and learning this entire process all over again. This is awesome. So a couple more things that make sure the room is in a well ventilated and either dim or dark. Now, I would say dim or dark is fine. I'm going to do the full demo in this kind of fairly bright lighting. And the reason why is because if you take a look at a Calibrite device, these colorimeter ones, in the very front, there's a felt lining that prevents lighting from coming in anyway. So it's going to do a lot of that lighting mitigation already. So I'm not really going to worry about it much. And I've done calibration on my channel in bright light like this all the time. Hasn't really been a problem before. But nonetheless, it's not a bad idea to dim your environment a little bit if you're going to do this. Make sure your display is at typical ambient temperature. This is how you use it normally. If there's an air conditioning unit that's flowing on here, you might not want that to happen, because it's going to affect the thermal stabilization display, because you want the LED on these panels, the one inside your laptop or external one, to warm up properly. And I'll leave a link to these documentation from Apple in the description if you want to read more about it. Sometimes, I mean, they give you the overall method on how to do, but they don't actually show you the step-by-step, and this is where my guide comes in as an ancillary thing for them. Now, let's go through the demo and do a full calibration with the Calibrite Display Plus HL device. As I mentioned before, I'll be doing this demo on the Studio Display XDR. Now, interestingly enough, both the displays I have, the one built into my 16-inch MacBook Pro and this one, are both capable of doing the full calibration, but I'm simply going to use this one to do the demo. Now, this is linked up to my 16-inch MacBook Pro, which I'll be doing the screen recording on. This way, you get to see all the dialogue and interfaces that I'm about to share with you, and I'll overlay this in the final edit. You may see this display flicker a little bit, changing into the various reference mode and going to full calibration, but that's all about you're going to see on this external display. There won't be any graphical user interface on here or the system setting dialog. All right, so to start us out, what I would do is simply go into system settings and display. This is where I would see all the display that's linked up to my system, so do make sure that you have the right display selected. For instance, right now my built-in display selected, and it is denoted by that little triangle. It can be a little bit hard to see, and if you want to simply switch to another display that's linked up to your system, simply just click on the picture of the other display and it moves over. You can see I'm switching back and forth right there, but now we're going to focus on the Studio Display XDR. Now, I have the preset that I want to use already selected here. That is Photography, Adobe RGB, D65, luminance of 80 in SDR, and it has the high dynamic range capability. If you want to know more about these presets, how to create them, I recommend watching part 1. Now, interestingly enough, on this, I have this color mode selected. This is a custom one I have created, and you want to do the same thing too before you go through the full calibration. Interestingly enough, the full calibration also does one more thing, and it also adjusts the luminance. So if you have a 14 or 16 inch MacBook Pro, for example, M1, M2 generation, you're using it a lot, and you find out that you're going in there to create a custom preset mode, set the display luminance to, for instance, like 100 nit, and your display is only showing 90, this is where you want to come in and do the full calibration so that it would adjust the baseline again, so that you're not out of range and your display is now showing more precise luminance on your display. So something really neat to do there. But what I'm simply going to do in the preset dialog is click on that drop down list and come and click on Calibrate Display. Now this is going to pop up the dialog on the secondary display. I'll simply just drag this over to our main display, and this shows us a few things. So we can select the various calibration method. There's full calibration, which we'll do. Fine-tune calibration and visual fine-tune, I cover that in part 2, and link for that will be in the description. Below that will tell you the calibration that applies to the following display. This is the Studio Display XDR, gives you my serial number. It tells you the preset I'm using, and the calibration is on original right now, and there are no fine-tune calibrations on because I've gone through a calibration process and it kind of reset the process like halfway through. That's the reason why it removes all the fine tune. Now, the other thing to note too is that once you have done the full calibration, it will remove all your fine tune calibrations. So you have to go back and do that again. This is the reason why I'm telling you that you don't need to do a full calibration all the time. I would simply do this either 3, 6, 9 months or like a year down the road so that your display has some time to drift a little bit before you have to go through and redo everything in the process. So just something to think about there. Simply enough for this, what I'm going to do is click on full calibration, and it tells you the screen that I shared with you earlier. It will adjust the primary luminance and gamma response. Important stuff, it's luminance, because if it drifts off, which it does happen because these are simply just LED, the longer they run, the more they kind of dim down. But if there's a way to get them back to like about baseline value again, either by overcompensating in the system somehow, this is the perfect way to do that. And like I said, it will also replace previous calibration and fine-tuning. Calibration improves all preset, but it's most important to optimize your current presets. This is why we create a custom one and we choose that one before we go into full calibration. It says you need to be in a dark environment and have the measurement device connected to the Mac. What I'm simply going to do is take my Calibrite Display Plus HL and I'm just going to plug this into my Mac. Now, if you have an external Apple display, you can simply just plug the device into the Apple external display. It doesn't really matter where you plug it in. It's going to function in the exact same way. I'll click on next, and this is going to read my calibrator. It's telling me my device is from Calibrite Display Plus HL firmware version and serial number. If you plug another version in, it's just simply not going to be compatible and says no compatible device plug in. I'm going to click on next, and it's showing me a target on my screen. What I'll simply do with the Calibrite device is simply take it and pull the cover off. Simply just pull it like that, rotate it to the back so that the lens is exposed. And by the way, if you need to adjust this counterweight, you're not going to tug on it and pull it hard or something. In the counterweight itself, there's a little tab that you can just press down opposite side from like the regulation tag. Just simply press down, and now you can easily move the cable up and down without having to use a lot of effort. You're not going to damage the cable this way as long as you're using this particular method. So don't just tug on it and pull really hard. There's really no need to do that. So what I'm going to do is going to hang this on the display and adjust the counterweight to where it is. It's laying flat on the display right now, but for the best result, what you want to do is just lean the display back like so. And simply enough, from this point, you're going to click on begin. Now, this is going to put your display into a full calibration mode. So it's going to take the display out from the system, go through a full calibration. Interestingly enough, if this is linked up to a desktop Mac, you're not going to see a progress bar whatsoever. It's not going to tell you anything. However, if this is linked up, for instance, to a laptop or another display in your system, you'll be able to see the progress bar and be able to follow along as far as how far the progress is going. But it's really not going to tell you much. It's just simply a progress bar saying, hey, this is how far we are along. So what it's going to do after this is that it's going to put your display into full brightness mode. It's going to warm up your display for 30 minutes, regardless of if you have been using your displays for hours already or not. And then afterwards, it's going to process through to the calibrations. Once this is done with that, it's going to do some cool down process, thermal stabilization, and then pretty much tells you, hey, calibration is done. So my setup did change a little bit, but now we're done with the calibration. We simply get a dialog that shows up saying calibration has been completed successfully on the studio display using the following instrument, Display Plus HL, with the following serial number. When you're done with that, simply press on done. You'll be taken back to the Apple Pro Display Calibrator, to which you have the option to select the calibration method at the top. This gives the information about your display. And most importantly, next to calibration is the date and time that your display have finished the full calibration. Right below that is fine tune. So fine tune right now says no adjustment. And even though I may have done fine tuning on this specific preset before, a full calibration would remove the fine tuning, not just only on this preset, but on all the presets that you have on your display. This is where you watch my part 2 video and follow through that guide on how to fine tune the calibration again. Now, interestingly enough, if you have the 14 or 16-inch MacBook Pro or the Apple Studio Display XDR, when you do a fine-tuning calibration, it's not something that you do once and it applies display-wide like the other models. On these models, fine-tuning is done per preset. So if there are multiple preset or multiple custom preset that you have created, you want to go in and do a fine-tune on each and every one of them. So that's just something to keep in mind. But that is pretty much the whole entire process on how to do a full calibration on an Apple Pro display. Interestingly enough, the longest part here is warming up the display, which takes 30 minutes, and then measures 113 color patches, and that took about 8 minutes or so. So overall, you're looking at spending about 40 to 45 minutes in this whole entire calibration process. Not too bad, especially if you can get the display back to factory setting. Anyhow, I hope you find this guide helpful. Give this a like, subscribe, and hit the bell if you're new. I'm Art, and I thank you for your time.